Is the housing market crash finally coming to the Iowa City area? Well, change is on the wind, and today we're going to talk about the local market and my boots on the ground experiences with both my listings and my buyers. In the past month to month and a half, the real estate market here in Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty, and Tiffin has begun to feel different. Many houses are no longer selling the first day or two they're on the market. Showing activity has drastically decreased, and the number of buyers actively shopping for homes has fallen off a cliff. Not gonna lie, we have all gotten used to the market running at such breakneck speeds that now this new normal really feels kind of eerie. Let's talk about buyers for a minute. Before anybody launches into a Chicken Little, the sky is falling moment, it's important to understand that there are seasonal fluctuations to real estate activity that are totally normal. It's normal in our market to see a fairly significant slowdown in the late summer. People are off enjoying themselves and making the most of the good weather. Folks are out of town on vacation. And because our rental market operates on the university schedule, the buyers that were on the fence about buying or renting are now back in leases for another year. But the serious buyers, they'll be back once school is in session. We'll see a modest uptick in buyer activity from September through mid-November. I think we also saw some buyers take a step back when interest rates were in the news. Rates did briefly jump to about 5.5%, and that combined with rising prices just convinced people that the market was a no-go for them. Interest rates have actually come back down under 5% despite the recent increase by the Fed, but I think a lot of buyers don't realize this. The days of sellers receiving multiple offers over list price with buyers waiving inspections and appraisals, in addition to doing anything else they possibly could to be the winning bid, those days are over. In fact, the sound of that proverbial door slamming shut is loud. This is difficult news for home sellers who missed the peak of the market by just a few weeks. We're in what I call a sticky stage. Some home sellers are still stuck on pie-in-the-sky high listing prices because that's what they saw all their friends and neighbors getting this past spring and summer. They want it too, but buyers aren't playing anymore. The sooner home sellers realize that the tables have turned and they are now competing for the remaining buyers rather than the buyers competing for those available listings, well, the sooner those sellers will see offers that turn into purchase agreements. Sellers need to take a hard look at what is a realistic asking price for their house. When looking at comparable properties, it's important to realize that with this sudden housing market shift, true comps are not what have sold in the last 6 months, but rather what's sold in the last month and what's currently under contract. This is a sudden change, and it can make finding comps a bit difficult. Our market is not that big, so there just may not be any good recently sold comparable properties in your specific neighborhood. But make no mistake, it's not that home prices are drastically decreasing locally, more that those inflated prices are no longer acceptable to buyers. It's imperative that sellers are realistic in pricing strategy. The MLS data is where it all comes out in the wash. I watch the MLS Hot List daily. It's a list of everything that's happened in the MLS in the last 48 hours. What's gone under contract, what's been withdrawn or canceled, what's sold, and what has a reduced price. For example, earlier this year, the number of homes with reduced prices would only be 1 or 2 in a 48-hour period. But recently, I saw 26 properties reduce their price in a 48-hour period. These price drops are not insignificant either. We're talking price reductions in the range of $5,000 to $15,000. Again, I don't want to give people the impression that we're experiencing a crash in our local real estate market, or that it is suddenly flipped all the way to a buyer's market. That is not the case. Things are shifting out of the insanity that we experienced for the past 2 years, but so far shifting to a more normal market. Let's look at numbers from the Iowa City Area Association of Realtors, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Alrighty, I have got our market statistics pulled up here on the Iowa City Area Association of Realtors for the most recent month available, which is July of 2022. Notice I have this set for Iowa City, Coralville in the Northwest Quadrant, which includes Tiffin, and I have it set for only single-family homes for this particular slide. When we look at the prices here, we can see that they started taking quite a jump upward here in February, and they continued to go up. They hit a peak right here in April, little tiny dip, and then they started heading back up in June. July, we are starting to see a downward trend. Now, these prices are based on closings, so anything that is closing in July was probably written in May or June. It'll be really interesting to watch the trend of this line as we get it in a few more months further into the fall. You can see that the number of closed sales is decreasing. Again, we talked about that earlier in the video. Buyers are starting to wash out of the market for a variety of reasons. Now, before you think that suddenly prices are dropping, like I've been saying, we are not experiencing a crash. We are still looking at a sales price over list price. It is trending downward ever so slightly, so that is a number that we will be watching carefully. New listings here are holding pretty steady. You can see there was a big jump in new listings back in March, which is normal. That's a normal seasonal fluctuation. Everybody wants to get their house on the market for the spring market. You can see the big dip in inventory back in December. Again, that's normal. We have low inventory in the winter, and it's been gradually working its way upward. So here is what I want you to notice. The month's supply of inventory. We're sitting at 2.2, which is still well into the seller's market range. In order for the market to be considered a buyer's market, we would have to have about 6 months of inventory. So while our inventory is improving, it is definitely not in the buyer's market range. Let's switch this over to condos so that we can take a look at that market. All right, again, prices are starting to trend downward in condos. The list price, sale price to list price ratio is, again, we are still very close, slightly over full price, although it is starting to trend downward. Active inventory, new listings, holding pretty steady, and month supply of inventory, again, not in a buyer's market. It is still a seller's market, although the month supply of inventory is ever so gradually creeping upwards. From a boots on the ground perspective, I am seeing that buyers who are still in the market are taking advantage of the shifting market dynamics. I've written several offers recently, and none of them have been for full price. It's been my experience that almost all newly listed homes prices feel a little high. And when I pull comps from my buyers and we analyze the price, it is apparent that sellers are still shooting for the moon in hopes that a buyer will just love the house enough to bite. My buyers are having success with making realistic data-supported offers. We've been able to pull the price down because sellers are still trying to get inflated prices. Another exciting development in offers that I've written recently is that inspections are back. I'm talking home, pest, and radon. Home buyers no longer feel that keeping their inspection contingencies puts their offer at risk of rejection. This is great news. A home is too big of an investment to walk into blind. I've seen further proof of the shifting market in the response of builders to buyer requests. Earlier this year, any buyer request for a change or a concession in a spec build, such as a request for additional outlets or the installation of a shower door, even when the buyer was offering to pay for those upgrades, was met with a swift and resounding no. Well, every tide turns eventually. The powers that be behind many new construction projects are now willing to at least entertain buyer requests. This past weekend, I asked about several small changes my buyers wanted at a house they were considering, and was told by the builder's rep basically, "We prefer to do no changes, but write up the offer and I'll see what I can do." So I wrote up the offer with a seller paid closing cost credit, and the builder said yes. Yay! On the selling side, I have a listing that would have sold in a hot second just 2 or 3 months ago. It's a nice listing in a nice neighborhood and it's priced appropriately. But it's taken a while, which is getting old for my sellers. We're breathing deeply, we're practicing our patience, and we're being realistic about the market and how it's rolling. We are getting showings, which is better than what I'm hearing from a lot of other agents who are reporting that they're getting very little traffic at all through their listings. Hey, if you'd like to chat with me about buying or selling real estate in the greater Iowa City area, I would love to hear from you. You can find all my contact information in the description box of this video. If you're watching on your phone, just tap the title and it will open up for you. Hey, it's been fun, and I'll catch you later.